2:30, and we will get this on track so we can get ready for our friends come over from the county. Can you hear us, Counselor?
Yeah.
Super, okay. We'll call this meeting to order. This 2:30, the time and place is advertised with the right agenda here. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please stand and join us in reciting our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Council. Next up is an action item. Please note that identifying an item as next item does not require the City Council to vote on that item. Item A, Resolution 2025-30, considering consenting to the continuance of the June 12, 2025 declaration of local disaster emergency pertaining to the May 31st, 2025 Hadley fire beyond the 7 days of its inception in accordance with Idaho Code 46-1011. So with that, I would like to open it up for discussion to the councilors. We have 5 councilors here today. So councilors, questions, comments, motions. But Councilor Spickelmeyer.
So on this, was there any, other than burning, I talked to a couple of people who live up on there and they didn't think any buildings burned, correct? Was there any dead property damage?
So I can't answer that question. But in the city limits, I know there was no structures that were burned. Outside the city limits, I do have an email from the chief that said that they were doing structure protection. So there's probably another question of whether or not we should have been providing structure protection up there. But whether or not any structures were lost, I can't answer the question. This declaration, I found this declaration when it first, well, soon after the fire, I should say, I'd asked the chief about where the fire was located, and he was not sure. He said, depending on where the city limits are, it's either the center of the road or it's in the outside the road. And our city surveyor, Mark Wiggin, confirmed that when that property was annexed into the city limits are on the north right-of-way of Hathaway Road up there, which then includes a small portion of the fire. It's a very small portion, but nonetheless, it is in the city limits. No structures. It's unlocked. But there were no structures within the city limits that we know. Councilor Wright.
Yeah, thank you. So just, I guess, for me, anybody else who is unsure, why is it beyond the 7 days of its inception? Is it did it just take us time to realize?
So this declaration is beyond the 7 days of the fire, but what that implies is that when the mayor signs a declaration of local disaster emergency, it's only good for 7 days. So we have to meet within that 7 days, and then council has to vote whether or not to continue the declaration or not. And the purpose for filing this, once we learned that it did occur, some of it occurred within the city limits, and there was a lot of activity in the county land that eventually IDL took over the fire, established incident command and took it over. There are some other specifics about the fire that are not being discussed publicly right now, but once those facts are determined, there could be other folks involved. And I signed the declaration, and I'm asking the council to consider it because in the event that we are eligible for reimbursement from the state of Idaho or a third party, we need to have declaration signed, and we need to have all that stuff documented, the dispatch and everything else. Without that, we would not be eligible for any reimbursement. If we get any at all, and that I don't know.
And so what do you want from us if we approve it on those reasons that you just gave us.
If council approves this, then it means that the declaration will go beyond the 7 days, and so we will then have to go through the process of settling accounts, you know, and I don't know how long that's gonna take. This is very similar to the Glen Fire Complex, where we had the chief. If you remember from our hearing the other day, he said he had to go back 5 days, he had to postate some things. But I don't remember if I found a declaration for that one. I don't think of it, do I? No, not on that one, there was another one.
Thank you.
So is this something you want us to approve, or?
I want us to be eligible for reimbursement in the event that we are eligible, and I don't think we'll know that until we get through this, but the facts are that, yes, it did burn within the city limits. No, there were no structures burned. Yes, we responded to the incident in the immediately in the area of city impact, you know, and then it appears that when we went beyond that, but we'll have to address that later.
So do you want a motion,
I would like a motion.
or do you want to continue questions? I can make a motion.
I thought Jessica seemed like she had questions.
Counselor, did you have a question? Counselor Klein?
Oh, okay. What are we hoping to get reimbursed for? There was no structure or anything, is it just resources and?
So, the city Lewiston Fire Department dispatched resources and personnel to this fire in support of that effort. And today, we do not have a mutual aid agreement with Nez Perce County for fire protection. And so personnel were dispatched under an SOP, a fire department SOP 503. And under that SOP, which was first developed back in the 90s and that was last modified a couple of years ago, basically states that the city will respond to life-threatening incidents within the area of impact, which this was. But it also provides very clear direction, and that the Lewiston Fire Department will not provide structural support. And so that's what fire department operator, the authority to operate under. It's a separate tool or instrument than what you were asked to consider the other night at City Council, but they both operate the same. So it's something that I think we need to look at. You know, whether that one should also be a mutual aid agreement with the county that the council would vote on and not contained in an SOP. Council President Kleberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And what effect would it have had we agreed to the proposal that we had, a couple of weeks ago with the Department of Lands that was shot down? Seems to me if we'd have approved that at the time, this would all be moved.
Well,
It would automatically be rolled into their.
yeah, no, it's a very good question, because in that mutual aid agreement and in the documents that support that, it says very clearly that the city would not be allowed to self-dispatch. So what that means is IDL would have to dispatch us to the incident, and that did not happen here. We self-dispatched. We got a call to our dispatch center, and it was initially reported as a fire. I think there was a little bit of uncertainty about whether it was in the city limits or not. I went and listened to some of the calls, and the dispatch asked the callers clearly, is it in the city or the county? And the people calling, some were not sure, some were definite that it was in the county. So I think the fire department would have responded regardless, you know, and then once they determined where it was at, that's when then they could have, you know, taken maybe some different actions. But we don't have that mutual aid agreement with Nez Perce County for fire protection. So in terms of who was in charge of the fire at the time, that's probably a valid question. The emergency management coordinator for the county was out of state. And I think initially we're trying to find out who we were supposed to be working with on this incident. a lot of confusion in the moment. The IDL did come by, I don't know what time, they did come by later in the evening and set up a consent command, and control was turned over to them. They took it from there, and then I think the last of our resources left the fire somewhere around 1:30 in the morning. Back to the station.
If you have a question, go ahead.
I'm not disagreeing with doing it, is there restrictions on what we can use if they do give us assistance with money, like what we can use that for as far as reimbursements? Like, can you tell us what we can use if we got assistance?
If we were reimbursed,
Yeah, if we receive assistance or money, do they have restrictions on what we can use those monies
by
towards?
the way, it'd go back into the general fund. That's where the money came out of.
Okay,
To pay for the salaries and the equipment and the fuel and everything else that was used in that, in responding. Councilor Schroeder.
I move to approve resolution 2025-30. Would you like me to read the rest of it?
Sure, just the title right there would be
What I've read is all you want?
right here.
Oh, there, sorry. Resolution consenting to the continuance of the declaration of local disaster emergency pertaining to the Hatway Road the Hatway fire beyond 7 days of its inception in accordance with Idaho Code 46-1011.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Schroeder, second by Councilor Wright, to approve resolution 2025-30 consenting to the continuance of the declaration of local disaster emergency pertaining to the Hatway fire beyond 7 days of its inception in accordance with Idaho Code 46-1011. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Councilor Klein?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, council.
Excuse me, Mayor. This is supposed to be a roll call vote, not a voice vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. That was a practice run. Clerk Rocky?
Council President Kluger,
Aye.
Councilor Spiegelmeier,
Aye.
Councilor Forza. Aye. Councilor Schroeder,
Aye.
Councilor Wright,
Aye.
Councilor Klein.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you,
Double
Jennifer.
approved it.
Motion carries. That finishes our business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Council President Kleberg, second by Councilor Schroeder to adjourn. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Oh, you're fine.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.
You're okay. I can leave.